Josh, how did you find Carnivore?
Oh, thanks. Great question, Dave. Well, I for those that haven't seen the last episode with us, I'll give a quick recap. It was basically I've been trying all sorts of diets my whole life. I was always fascinated with food as medicine, and so I'd been raw vegan for years, where it wasn't just vegan; it was raw vegan. So, which is doable. It's none of that processed nonsense vegan crap. It's basically just salads and fruits and smoothies and stuff like that. And I actually felt pretty good on it. I remember when I did like a juice feast, which is like a juice fast for I think I did it for like a month and a half or even longer, 2 months. And at that state, after that 2 months, like colors were bright and it was really bright. I could smell more. It was quite amazing. But it was one of these things where, first of all, you just seem like a knob. You go out, oh no, I can't eat that because I'm a raw vegan. Like you just, and no one's got the things that you can eat. You can have your apple or whatever. And if you go to a restaurant, there's nothing that they got because everything's basically got something that's processed. And then I started feeling really weak after a long time of doing raw vegan. And I always had massive psoriasis. That was my whole life. It wasn't from veganism, but it just didn't solve that. And I started getting very numb hands when I was sleeping. So I'd wake up I don't know, like uh, every couple of hours. Yeah, I had this sleeping issue where first you think, oh, maybe I'm lying on my arm, but it was happening on both hands, and it was always these two fingers and sometimes three fingers, and sometimes I'd wake up and they were dead. I'd have to like hit it, and then of course you wake up and you're awake, and then you can't sleep for another like 2 hours because you're wide awake, and it was really causing me problems. So I I did everything and I couldn't figure it out. And by the way, but before that, I'd had heart surgery and stuff because of a birth defect in my valve. So they replaced my valve and the aorta, the aortic root. And then once I'd had the surgery, they had to put a pacemaker in because when they do valve surgery, sometimes they can create scar tissue on that AV node that causes the ventricle and the atrium to talk together. So then I got a pacemaker, and yeah, the rest is sort of that. And eventually, a lot of Bitcoiners, because I've been in the Bitcoin space for a very long time, big fan of getting back to bearer-based money, money that's not held by the government or controlled by the government or a central authority. And one of the things that started coming out of, funnily enough, the Bitcoiners, the hardcore Bitcoiners, was like Bitcoiners steak. And there was a couple of big influencers in the space that were just eating meat. And I just thought it was the most craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, here's me, a raw vegan. I'm not feeling too good. Like, I'm feeling all right, but I've got all these ailments and I'm still young. And I've been through, heart surgery and stuff. So I'm really trying to be health conscious because I've been through heart surgery. I want to, be around for as long as possible. And these guys, and I remember thinking the first thing that came to my head is like cholesterol, like the old cholesterol. What's your cholesterol? And then a few years later, the hands thing got so bad that I was waking up every, I don't know, hour, half an hour, and having to like do this. And I realized what it is was some inflammation in my spine, just where those nerves come out and start dealing with the hands. And I remember I dropped the vegan thing because I'd also become very weak, sort of anemic, not enough iron. And so I was living overseas, and I just started eating more normally. Um, and the psoriasis was getting worse, and my hands were getting worse, and I just thought there has to be something here. And then I thought, I'm just gonna I'm gonna try this carnivore thing that these guys were going on about for so long. And they gave me weird like reasons. They were like, oh, all vegetables and fruits are all like they're totally different now than what they have been in the past. And like everything's changed since. They're all frankenfoods now. But meat is still meat. And while I agree with that now, in from the carnivore's perspective, I still think it's a little bit disingenuous because cattle has changed a lot too over the time. We've done unnatural selection where we've farmers have selected certain breeds and made these like freakishly muscled cows and stuff like that. So there definitely has been change, but in terms of purity, being on a pure carnivore, just eradicating everything else, it was only 2 weeks and no more numb hands. No more numb hands after 2 weeks of carnivore. And I remember thinking, wow, that's nuts. And then my skin went clear because I would have full red and scaly skin. And I still get a little bit here and there, but generally speaking, it's night and day. It's night and day. All that inflammatory stuff disappeared. And that's how I found carnivore.
And how long ago was this?
So that was like 4 years ago.
Wow,
Yeah.
so you've been pretty much carnivore for 4 years,
Yeah. I'd say like 3.5 years. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I was very, very strict because once that 2 weeks was over and my hands stopped being numb, and I was really strict about it. I'm not really a foodie, so to speak. Like I don't enjoy it. Like if I'm sitting down at a restaurant and someone says, "What do you want?" I'll just say, "I'll just choose for me." Like I'm not. I and I remember thinking, why is that? Like someone's asked me, "Why are you not into food?" And I think it's I can't visualize taste, or I can't sort of imagine taste of things as much as other people. Maybe I don't know. Everyone, I can't get into other people's heads, but when I think about, I just say, oh yeah, and that's why I think carnivore worked for me because it's like steak. Yep, no worries. I'll have another steak, easy. I don't need to think about it.
And I guess if you're not visualizing, like, the upcoming taste and whatever, so it's not really entertainment, so it's really it is just a functional thing for you, right?
It's functional and medicinal. I was
Mm.
always fascinated with like medicinal mushrooms, and during my vegan stage of like understanding like all these amazing things that are in life, and um, until I realized that once I ate carnivore, how absolutely medicinal flesh is, and it sounds so primal saying it like that, specifically that word flesh instead of meat, but it is like and fat. And it's funny, I was seeing a doctor recently, and she said to me, I'm constantly amazed at there isn't one thing that she's seen that fats can't cure. She said, because she started down this like keto carnivore thing, and she's just blown away by it. She said she's seen, and Dave, you've interviewed them all. Like, what are you up to? Like 1,000 people now, more?
Yeah, nearly 1,200.
Oh, that's amazing, man! Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sign that doctors are starting to move this way, right? Just like the average street GP, is starting to go, "Oh, well, maybe there's something to this."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, they get like 2 weeks out of the 7 years that they have to study in nutrition. So it's not like they've got a big respect for it. But I think once you can because basically a doctor just says balance your diet, you'll be right. That's what they say. But their balance is based around the food pyramid, which is a total ridiculous hoax uh, pushed upon us by large industry, food industries, and specifically breakfast industries, and all this sort of thing. But when you flip that, and you start thinking about the amount of benefits from just eating good animal fats and animal products, just the way you feel, it's amazing. Yeah, and I do have some warnings for people though, and maybe we can get into that.
Sure. Just before we do, you made me think of something that I want to bring up just before I forget. When you mentioned the thing about balance, the biggest problem with that word is it's like beauty. Balance is in the eye of the beholder, right? So it's the way you see balance is maybe completely different to the way I see balance. So everyone's walking around with this idea in their head, like, yeah, I'm eating a balanced diet, but
Yeah,
yeah.
totally.
Anyway, so yeah, sorry. Yeah, let's what kind of warnings do you have?
Well, the thing, like I mentioned before, I'm not a huge eater, right? So what I recently had was quite a lot of atrial fibrillation, and what that is where your atrial, and the thing is, I'm not the usual, because I've got a pacemaker and I've got some issues with the and I've had it for years. So and the leads are starting to corrode. So there's some issues there, and they've tried to get around that with software. So I had all this thing, but I finally realized also on top of all of that, I've had some AFib, and this is a very common heart disease. And what a lot of the thinking behind it now is that it's not even a heart disease a lot of the time. A lot of the time, it's just a lack of some things, specifically mineral. And the thing is that carnivores um, are absolutely fine. And in fact, it cures a lot of the heart diseases that people get. I've seen people that have had AFib, they go carnivore and it goes away. The problem is if you don't, and by the way, guys, this isn't any medical advice. Obviously, you have your disclaimers, Dave, all over the place. This is just two guys on the internet talking about our own personal situation. But I found that I wasn't getting enough potassium because I just wasn't eating enough meat. I was having one steak a day, and then every couple of days, I'd have some bacon and eggs in the morning, as well as the steak at night. So it just wasn't enough potassium, and I was basically just and I was I'm not mega pure carnivore. I was drinking coffee as well with fat, like with cream. So the coffee was also is a diuretic. So I was urinating a lot um, uh, and drying out. You dry out. So that was also eliminating the potassium. And so if anybody out there has got AFib, I urge you to give that a try, just to supplement some potassium, just to see if that works. And if that does work, because you notice it really quickly, like um, you know, in that day, that you won't feel the shockingness. And if that's the case, up the amount of meat that you're eating. You're not eating enough meat, and drop the coffee. Maybe. Let's
Yeah.
talk to your professional.
Um, so you're just eating more, like you're not taking any particular electrolytes or anything like that?
Um, well, it's only like in the last 2 weeks that I've really figured it out that it was potassium. It's amazing. I find it amazing. Like, imagine if you're a cardiologist, you deal with people all day long with with AFib and all these issues. Not one said to me, "Oh, let's test your blood for potassium," because it's such an obvious thing. I mean, it would be if I was a cardiologist, it's the first thing I'd ask. Well, what's your potassium levels at? Like, it's such a no-brainer, but somehow I don't understand normal Western medicine. They just, unless it's a statin, they'll throw you on that within a second. If it's something like a normal mineral, they won't even talk about it, which is It's just strange.
So, I
But
mean,
anyway,
are they like kind of just, "We've gotta do an ablation," or, "We've gotta shock you back into rhythm," or something like that? Or, like, they
yeah,
they
well,
they don't even wanna check, "Oh,
they don't,
maybe
yeah.
maybe you need some electrolytes." They're not interested in that, right?
No, they'll drop you on beta blockers or ablation or yeah, like you said, they'll just go straight to the heavy pharmaceuticals, usually beta blockers first. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But uh but yeah, so that's my thing. And this is something that happens when you first get onto carnivore too. As you head into ketosis, and people through the keto diet, they if they're just doing keto, um, they'll also experience that keto flu, which they call, and that's basically also this lack of electrolytes. And the way you get around it is just get some good like Celtic sea salt or something like that, and put it in a because Celtic sea salt is, from my research, is one of the best, broadest salts that have really a strong mineral structure. You don't want to use just basic iodized crappy salt. You want really quality sea salt, because that has a lot of good minerals in it. And and if you're taking enough of those electrolytes while you head from a normal standard SAD diet into the ketosis, you won't even feel that keto flu.
And so how does your family feel about you eating this way?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, they're a bit used to me being wacky with my diets, with the whole raw vegan thing and stuff. In terms of my wife and my child, they don't. My child doesn't even realize she's 5, so she's always just known me as, all dad eats is steak. Like, she doesn't even question it. And then my wife actually has started eating some meat as well, through it all. So and she sees the benefits in it, and she sees it just in me, how I'm feeling and doing. Um, but yeah, what did you find with your family?
Well, my daughter's just like, "Oh, this is really cool. I don't have to share candy with him anymore." And, you know, my wife, though, she's a nurse and she's Japanese, so it's n
Yeah,
she's happy I'm feeling better, but it's not for her.
yeah, yeah. I think it's just important if they, do what you want and if it's working for you. And sometimes, you know, I I think maybe I said this in the last time we talked, but I'm really not one of these dogmatic carnivore. It's for everyone. I really am not. I think everyone's microbiome is so different and so unique because it's billions of different bacterias and reacting differently. I think carnivore solves so many problems, and everybody should give it a try if they're suffering with some sort of ailment, or even if they're not, they should definitely, do a ketogenic diet. But if you're suffering from like that, Dave, I mean, some of the amazing stories I've seen on your channel with people, with, oh God, from all sorts of, wobbling, can't even walk anymore from Parkinson's, and they go on this, and it's like reversing. It's stunning.
Yeah, I think, I kind of agree with you. The real this real dogmatic attitude of like, if you've ever looked sideways at a tub of yogurt, that's it. You're not carnivore. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm not into that. That just, yeah, it
yeah,
makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. I'm like, just everyone needs to do what's best for them, and
exactly.
even your flavor of carnivore. Like, some people can do just steak only, and that's good for them. Some people, they're better off when they've got some eggs in there or whatever, and some people are better if they're a little bit more ketovore or something. It's just
Mm,
whatever works for you, you know?
I think so.
But yeah, it's amazing when you see what at the end of the day, we've all got the same goal, and you
Yeah.
can even include vegans in this, right? And
Totally.
vegetarians. We're all trying to improve our health to some degree. Um, but yeah, it's get the main objective is getting the ultra processed foods out of our diet.
I think so. I think that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. And I think giving yourself grace as well. Like, if you have a really serious ailment, then you have to take it really seriously. And if, for instance, myself, you know, if I'm in my environment that I control, like at home, which I am 95% of the time, um, I'm pretty purist. And I've given up coffee too now, by the way. But yeah, thank you. But if I go to a friend's house and they've cooked some meal and put love into a big meal, I'm just going to eat it. I'm going to eat it and enjoy it and say thanks because it was made with their love and and if they don't, usually they have some meat or whatever, but they've put some sauce or whatever. They know that Josh is this strange carnivore guy, but and by the way, it's not that strange anymore. That's the amazing thing. They've like, oh, what you do is actually, I've heard of multiple people's now, thanks to shows like yourself, Dave. But if they'll put some sauce because they don't quite get it, and I'll eat it anyway. It's not gonna kill you. It's saying that, I was strict for the first 2 years. I was so strict. I didn't do anything. I would really was down the line. But what I found is that my gut bacteria had reformed itself and healed itself. A lot of the issues I feel were from like a leaky gut syndrome thing from childhood. When I was a teenager, they put me on antibiotics for a year for acne. Like, can you? When I say that, I can't even imagine that doctors do that to kids. Put you on for acne. Anyway, I just took it because I didn't. I was a kid. I didn't know what I was doing, and but I feel that that's where it's all started, and it caused and that mixed with sugar, wrong bacteria create little tiny perforations in the gut lining. So when you're eating foods, the nutritions pass through the gut, but also the toxins through these little holes, and that's why it's called leaky gut. And yeah, I'm sure you know all this, Dave, but just for your audience, that's generally what it is. And so your body's permanently trying to detoxify all these toxins, deal with it. It's all going through your lymph system. And if you're not moving as well, it's all just clogging up. And then it just, you get inflammation. And so by basically those 2 years of just being carnivore, I just gave nothing to those bacteria that they could survive on. So they died out. And I found now that I can, quote unquote, cheat every so often now. I can go to a friend's house and whatever, or have a low carb beer every so often, or I don't need to be so hardcore anymore, and my ailments aren't coming back so fast anymore. So that has been good. Saying that, I do think there is a really dangerous part of carnivore, and that is if you don't take it seriously, because it is such a high fat, high cholesterol diet that if you do, I'll just have this sugar, I'll just have this sugary thing. If you do that too often, your body basically goes, oh, okay, I'll just store this fat over here. I'll just store this cholesterol here for later. And that's when you get the problems. If you cut out the sugars, then it's not dangerous at all. It's the best thing ever. It basically builds you, repairs you. But if you add sugar to that by cheating every few days, you never go truly into ketosis or autophagy to be able to repair. And then it does get very, very dangerous, I feel.
Yeah, I and the I can see that happening, and also it's so easy for a lot of people to get back to that because they go, "Well, I'm doing fine. Look, I've lost all this weight. I feel great, so I'm gonna have a cheat." And of course, for a lot of people, having a cheat is kind of the start of, going downhill,
Yeah.
and you just keep going, and then you,
I'll have an
what I
all meat pizza,
experienced,
you know? It's like, yeah,
yeah,
but there's a whole lot of bread there. So now your body's and sugar from the sauces. And so now your body's like, yeah, okay, you still got meat in there, but now you've got all these carbs and sugars.
right, and potentially you're worse off after this than you were before you started, carnivore in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you found that people, that sometimes their ailments, I've heard, um, uh, what's his name? Um, the Canadian psychologist guy,
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. Yeah. Um, he said when he even touches anything now, it's actually like he's more susceptible. It's like a split thing. He feels great, but if he veers off, it really affects him. So like I said, everyone's different.
When you say that, it sounds a little bit like when you always like if you're always putting alcohol on your hands to sterilize your hands, you're gonna make them much more sensitive to any bacteria after that, right?
Yep.
It sounds a little bit like that, you've got your diet so clean that, the slightest little bit of sugar or something is gonna have a big impact. And, I feel like that sometimes, like, um, when I've tried to introduce some veggies back in, or when I've eaten some nuts, and the next day you're feeling like the knee pain coming back, or like the kind
Oh
of
yeah.
the blocked sinuses and whatever, it comes roaring back.
Yeah.
And
It does.
although it could also be that just because you've kind of cleaned house so much that, and you are eating clean, that bringing something back, it's just you notice the difference now. Whereas before you were so polluted that you didn't notice anything going on, like when you're eating a box of Fruit Loops for breakfast, that Twinkie at lunch is you don't
Yeah.
notice anything
It's
from
a
that,
fairy tale. Yeah. It's like you don't even. Yeah. It's like yeah. No, totally. I think you're right, man. Like, it's kind of also, like people that have tinnitus, the human body's amazing at sort of tuning stuff out. You just get used to this annoying peep in your ear, or you might just get used to having brain fog and being slightly tired, or just lethargic, and so when you eat cleanly and that you step up to a new level, all of a sudden when you eat the other thing, and you're like, whoa, and you really notice those changes.
It's really quite a testament to our bodies that it can cope under so much pressure, and then when the pressure is released, it goes, "Okay, now I can go back to functioning properly."
Yeah, yeah. Oh, totally.
It's yeah.
It's such a miracle. One thing that I realized, um, every year, there was a window of time in the year where I would get asthma attacks, from certain pollens would start to, be in the air, and and I'd get these asthma, like, just start to not be able to breathe properly, and I'd need a puffer, and I had that since a kid, and I've since going carnivore, and I forgot. Since going carnivore, it was like, in my third year, I was at like a really dusty music festival, and it was hot as, and it was dusty, just the right conditions for my asthma. And I remember thinking, huh, I haven't had asthma in 2 years. Like, uh, and then I thought, that must be because I'm carnivore. So it was this other thing that I wasn't even, I just totally forgot. that I had because it wasn't like I'd always needed the puffer. It was just this window, but I realized that the window had also disappeared. I never needed it anymore. And so that was a really nice surprise as well.
So, can you see yourself eating this way for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean, when after three to 3.5 years or whatever it's been, the moments where I have eaten normally, I just notice how it's like most food is 90% filler. Like it's all rice with a little bit of meat, or it's all bread with some salami on top, or it's like all the food is just this filler stuff. So no wonder you're not actually satiated or properly. And then you think, imagine if you just eat the good stuff and leave all that filler out, leave all the cardboard away that your body's just having to process, and without all the glyphosates and all the crap that goes along with it, um, because eating just the pure good stuff that's actually helping your body. And so it's very hard for me to go away from that. I do think saying that I miss, for instance, after a steak that's really salty, I'm always like, I need something. I don't like to drink water straight away because I don't want to dilute the stomach acids too much while it's digesting that. But I do sometimes feel like I'd really like something like alkaline, like some sort of yogurt or something. My body's just craving like some sort of yogurt. So I do sometimes get some yogurt and I put a couple of blueberries on there, um, which is more on that ketogenic thing. And that it's not that often, but I do sometimes just have that hankering. But I'll definitely stay in a keto state. I think generally all along, in my entire.
Agree. When you look at stuff and you think, yeah, it is just filler. It's kind of like I don't know, when a TV show is just when you're watching it and you're looking at parts of it and thinking, "They're just trying to string this out to get to the full 25 minutes or whatever," you know? So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, these
yeah.
Netflix series that like are just a whole series. Yeah, I could have told that in one episode. Like, what are you guys doing?
Right, right. Yeah, that's basically what you're getting at restaurants, right? It's just like, "Oh, how can we make this look nice?" It's like, the steak's not very big. What can we put around it?
So true. It's so true.
Mm,
And when you think about how your body has to process, and it isn't it amazing, Dave, that your body, when you drive your car into the petrol station, so worried if you dare put diesel into a petrol engine, you'll destroy the whole engine. But the human body, you can just throw anything down there and it'll deal with it. Like that's how amazing it is for a while, you know.
right.
And the most people are just filling their meals with all this filler, um, that I think is it's just basically making your body work without giving it much nutrient at all.
Yeah. I mean, you look at most of the stuff in the middle aisles of the supermarket, if you look at the ingredients, you have to look pretty deep into the ingredients list to start seeing anything that resembles food as part of it, you know? It's just like emulsifiers and this flavoring and that, and it's like, "Oh, okay." And no wonder
Absolutely.
there's no nutrition in it.
And I mean, it also goes for meat. Like if you go through and look at the sausages, you think, why can't they just put the mincemeat into the the intestine skin and just seal it off and chuck it out to sell it? No, no, they need emulsifiers and gum and whatever. Like the list is so massive. I can understand a little bit of preservative, to make the shelf life longer, but the amount of stuff is just beyond me. And so yeah, I can't eat. I don't eat sausages generally speaking.
Yeah. So would you advise someone going into this to kind of transition in or go cold turkey?
I went cold turkey. I just went in. And the reason being is that when you transition in, and this is why I found actually keto really difficult, because in ketogenic diet, you have to look at everything and count how many carbs and, oh, but I'm up to this many and that many. With carnivore, you don't need to think about anything. You just, right, got my shopping list for the week. It's 7 steaks, or maybe do 2 so it's fresher. So you just go back to the shop every 2 days and get 2 more. And and, um, and that's it. You don't need to think about it. And you got some eggs and some bacon. Um, and that's it's pretty easy to do. And so I would say cold turkey is easier than trying to, slowly climb the ladder down into it.
Right.
What
Yeah.
what about you? What would you say? It's a great question.
For my personality, cold turkey is the only way to go.
Yeah.
But that's just because I can't moderate anything.
Yeah.
So, it's like I was having a conversation, with a guest yesterday, I can't the people that say that recommend giving up smoking by just cut down, and eventually you'll get to 1 a day and then, then
Yeah.
you'll not wanna have any, and it's like, no, because that 1 a day will be like the best cigarette I've ever had in my entire life, like, and so I'll never give it up, and
Yeah.
it'll just make me want more, so it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
It is, I just found it easier, just a steak on there, and it is I think again, it's one of those things like how severe is your ailment and how much do you want to just test something? And because if you have like a really strong ailment and you just want to see if that goes away, uh, because of me only, and maybe it's not for you, but you can add then things back in. Maybe it'll go your ailment go away, and then you can maybe add some broccoli, or if you're missing your vegetables, you can add and just stick with keto. But some people, they just love it. Like I just really find it easy because I can just go and put the steak on the air fryer and put some nice seasoning on it, like some salt and some pepper, and um, and I've become an expert in different types of salt. So it's just in different regions, different region. What's the mineral makeup of this salt? Yeah.
It's like, it's like a coffee being a coffee snob or whatever, and you see walk into someone's house now and you see table salt and you think, "Oh my
Oh,
goodness, how could they do
what the heck? That stacks table salt. Yeah, like what? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What about seafood? Do you eat much seafood being in Japan?
No. It's for me, it's just like it's just messy and it's like smelly to cook and all that kind of thing. So yeah,
Mm,
I don't really. Have
yeah.
sardines, like I try and eat sardines, but that's about it.
Mm, yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. Because
Mm.
I'm not the big fish guy either. I've never been a big fish flavor. I don't like the flavor that much, but I do know that the omegas are really great for you and stuff, so,
Yeah,
I
and
do
like
like to put it in there every so often.
there's like people say eat oysters, it's great for zinc and it's great for iron, all this kind of. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I've
It's
never been
all
an
good.
oyster guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've had one oyster in my life, and it was like this massive thing on top of a shooter in Hong Kong, and
Yeah.
never again.
Never
Yeah.
again. With bacon, it's alright if you put some bacon and really roast it on there. That's yeah, that
Yeah, okay. Because then
yeah,
it's just a vehicle
kill
for the
that.
bacon, like, it's like a Brussels
Exactly.
sprout then.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but
Um,
yeah. What about you, audience? Oysters, fish,
yeah. Are you are you
interesting to
into
know.
oysters? Um, yeah. So, Josh, how can people reach out to you?
I run a protocol called the Standard, and I'm on Twitter or X as J at JSCIGALA. In here, you can see it down the bottom, and yeah, just reach out on X.
No worries. I'll link to your site and your X in the show notes. Thanks for
Thanks.
coming back on and letting us know how things are going. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks, Dave, and thanks for all the work you do, man. It's really like I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people that are very thankful that the algorithm somehow put your video in front of them, that they've now cured themselves of XYZ ailment. So, well done.